I thought I'd seen every kind of betrayal life could offer until I saw my own blood breaking under a lie. His wife stood there with a calm face and a folder in her hand, claiming he could never give her a child. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the doctor's signature. The silence in her voice wasn't grief, it was victory. She wanted a divorce, a settlement, and a story that would make him look weak, but she forgot who raised him. She forgot who built everything she was standing on. So I watched, listened, waited, and when the truth finally showed itself, I stepped in, and her entire plan began to collapse. Like, subscribe, and share this story. Tell me, where are you watching from, and what's the time there? The house is too quiet when deceit begins. It doesn't scream, it hums, it waits. Every morning I still walk the same polished floors, hearing the echo of my steps bounce off marble and memory. The air smells of cedar and faint perfume, hers mostly. The daughter-in-law who smiles too carefully and thanks me too sweetly. My son trusts her completely. He should, she's his wife. But a man like me can tell when warmth is rehearsed. She calls me father in front of guests, yet her tone softens only when there's an audience. When we're alone, there's a pause after the word, an emptiness that says more than disrespect ever could. I have built empires from patience, and I have destroyed them the same way. Watching her walk around this house feels like watching a stranger rearrange the portraits of my life. Lately, she's been restless. Late calls, locked screens, sudden trips to the clinic. She claims it's about routine checkups. My son believes her. He always believes a father learns to listen, not to question. So I listen. The whispers from the kitchen, the phone calls that stop when I step inside, the tiny silences between her words, too perfect, too smooth. Something is forming in those gaps, and I can feel it. One evening, I hear their voices through the study door. Her tone is calm, but the kind of calm that cuts. She says the words I never thought I would hear inside my own home. You can't father a child, so I'm leaving you. The world seems to hold its breath. I don't move. Neither does he. She slides a paper across the table. I can't see the details, but I recognize the doctor's letterhead. He doesn't speak. He just stares at her like a boy who's lost his compass. I close the door quietly and walk away, pretending I've heard nothing. But inside, something ancient stirs, a storm I thought had died with age. I know the doctor. I've known him longer than she's been alive, and I know he would never write something like that without reason or without incentive. That night I sit in my study, lights dim, pen unmoving in my hand. I used to plan mergers and acquisitions here. Now I plan something else entirely. My son's voice echoes upstairs, soft, broken, asking why. She gives no answer, only measured silence. It's the silence of someone who's already somewhere else, counting what she stands to gain. The next morning, she leaves early. My son doesn't. He stays home, pacing the hallway, clutching that folder as if it holds his worth. When he finally hands it to me, I see the truth in black ink, a clinical lie. A sentence crafted for ruin, and below it, the signature of a man who once toasted me at his daughter's wedding. I don't speak. I simply fold the paper, slide it back into the envelope, and tell my son to rest. He doesn't need to see what comes next. The world outside pretends to be calm, the gardeners trimming hedges, the mail truck humming down the road, but everything in me has shifted. Deception is an art form I once mastered in business, but it never belonged in family. Now it does, and I have to remember how to paint with its colors. I pour a glass of wine and watch the liquid circle the crystal like a slow red tide. My reflection looks older than I feel, and for the first time in years, I realize I'm about to fight again, not for money, not for power, but for blood. When she returns that evening, her face glows with the satisfaction of someone who thinks the first stone has landed. She greets me politely, asks about my day, compliments the roses. I smile back. She doesn't notice that I never blink. There's a thin line between patience and calculation, and she's about to learn which side I live on. That night, I wait until the house sinks into quiet again. The clocks tick against the walls like steady warnings. I open the old desk drawer and pull out the small ledger where I once tracked investments. Tonight I use it for something else. Notes, dates, fragments of behavior. I write down every visit she's made to the clinic, every odd call that came just before dinner. It's an old habit. Gather evidence first, act later. Anger fades, proof doesn't. The next morning I call the clinic myself, pretending to check on my own records. The receptionist hesitates when I mention the doctor's name. Hesitation always means guilt or fear. I hang up before she can ask questions. That's enough for now. At breakfast, she sits across from me, graceful as ever. The light catches her wedding band, and for a second I wonder if she ever believed in what it meant. My son looks pale, eyes swollen from a sleepless night. He stirs his coffee, silent. She talks about redecorating the guest wing, her voice bright, her timing perfect. It's a performance, and he's too broken to see the stage lights. I let her finish, nodding, smiling where expected. When she leaves the table, I place my hand over his. The skin under my palm feels colder than the porcelain cup beside it. Take the day, I tell him. You don't owe anyone an answer yet. He nods, grateful for words that cost him nothing. When the door closes behind her, I finally allow myself to exhale. The air that leaves me feels heavy, almost metallic. I walk to the window and watch her car disappear down the road that leads straight to the clinic. People think revenge is a sudden decision. It isn't. It's patience sharpened into precision. By evening, I've made 3 calls to a friend in the legal office, to a private investigator who owes me a favor, and to a courier who still remembers how to deliver without questions. I pour another glass of wine, the same slow circle in the glass. The world outside is slipping into dusk. The first lights come on across the neighborhood, small, warm, and false. Inside, I begin the quiet work of dismantling a lie. Somewhere in the dark, she believes the trap is already closed. She's wrong. This house has seen fortunes built and buried. It knows how silence works, and by the time the silence breaks, every lie she's spoken will echo back to her, word for word. Morning returns with the same calm facade the house always wears. Beneath it, something has shifted. I wake before sunrise, not out of habit, but out of purpose. The air smells of rain, clean, deceptive. The investigator arrives just after 8. He parks far from the gate, as I asked. We talk in the study with the blinds half closed. He's an old contact from my business years, the kind of man who doesn't waste adjectives. I give him only what he needs, the doctor's name, the clinic address, and a reminder that discretion is worth double. He nods once and leaves without small talk. By the time my son comes downstairs, I'm reading the newspaper, or pretending to. He looks older today, as if one night of betrayal has aged him by decades. I tell him we'll have lunch together. He agrees, relieved that I'm still treating him like a man rather than a patient. At lunch she performs again, soft voice, measured sympathy, eyes lowered at the right moments. She calls him dear twice. Each time she says it, he shrinks a little more. I count her glances at her phone. 4 in half an hour. My patience holds. When she leaves the table, I tell him to go for a drive, clear his head. He thanks me, unaware that I've already instructed the investigator to follow her instead. The day crawls until evening. The investigator returns with a thin folder, his expression unreadable. Inside are photographs, her car outside the clinic, the doctor's door slightly open, an envelope passed hand to hand. One picture shows the doctor's face, uneasy but complicit. It's all I need. I feel the kind of calm that comes before a verdict. No anger, no surprise, just the certainty of direction. That night, I visit the doctor myself. He looks startled when he sees me at his office door. I tell him I only need a minute. He offers coffee. I decline. I place the photograph on his desk and wait for him to look at it. He does. His breath catches halfway through the sentence he'll never finish. I paid for your daughter's scholarship, I remind him quietly. His eyes close. The words stumble out. How she came to him, what she offered, how he rationalized it as harmless paperwork. Every confession sounds the same when fear starts talking. I don't threaten him. I don't raise my voice. I simply tell him that truth has a way of surfacing, and when it does, it rarely floats alone. He understands. By the time I leave, the false report is already shredded, and the real one, untouched, genuine, is sealed in an envelope he places carefully in my hand. Outside, rain finally begins to fall. It drums softly on the roof of my car, steady, relentless. I drive home with the envelope on the seat beside me, a quiet passenger holding every answer. When I enter the house, she's waiting in the hallway, dressed for dinner. Perfume thick in the air, she asks if I'd like to join them. Her voice is sugar again. I nod, hang my coat, and slip the envelope into my inner pocket. Dinner tastes of victory I haven't yet claimed. After the meal, she pours wine for all three of us. My son tries to smile, but his eyes remain clouded. She raises her glass and says, "To new beginnings?" I raise mine and echo to truth. She doesn't notice the difference. Later, when they go upstairs, I remain in the living room, lights dim, the envelope resting on the table. I don't open it. I already know what it says. What matters is when and how I reveal it. Timing in business and betrayal is everything. I stay awake long after the lights upstairs go out. The house breathes the quiet of people who believe the day has ended. I know better. From my chair, I can see the faint reflection of the hallway mirror. It catches the stairwell, the empty dining room, and a man who looks more patient than he feels. Somewhere behind the glass, I imagine her sleeping soundly beside the son she intends to ruin. Patience has weight. It presses on the ribs, steady and cold, until it becomes focus. I take the envelope, slide it into the safe behind the portrait, and spin the dial. Tomorrow will be a different kind of day. The first move will not come from anger, but from proof. Morning arrives gray and heavy. My son leaves early, saying he needs air. She lingers in the kitchen, humming, radiant in the way only guilt can shine. When she turns, she finds me at the doorway. Her smile falters for a breath, then returns. "Coffee?" she asks. I nod. We sit at the table. Steam curls between us like the last thread of something. Civilized, I mention that I visited the doctor. Her hand freezes halfway to the cup. The sound of porcelain against wood fills the silence. I tell her the visit was pleasant, that he spoke highly of her concern for my son's health. She recovers quickly, too quickly, and laughs about routine misunderstandings. I let her talk until the air feels thin. Then I stand, push the chair back slowly, and say only this. Every story eventually meets the truth that built it. Her eyes follow me as I leave the room. She doesn't ask what I mean. She already knows. By noon, the investigator calls the doctor has sent him a statement, signed and witnessed, retracting the false report. He's also included bank records, the deposit from her account, the exact amount she paid for the lie. I thank him and hang up. The paper trail is clean, complete, irreversible. When my son returns, I hand him the real report. He reads it once, twice, the words sinking in like rain into dry soil. For a moment he can't speak. Then he does quietly. "She lied?" I answer only with a nod. He sits back, staring at the floor. The sound that escapes him isn't anger, it's disbelief, the kind of disbelief that breaks something permanent inside a person. I tell him not to confront her yet. Truth is a blade best revealed in daylight, when everyone can see its edge. He agrees, still pale, still shaking. Outside, the rain starts again. I stand at the window and watch the driveway blur under it. The garden glistens. The roses bend. Some things survive the storm by learning how to bow. Tonight, the silence in this house feels different. It's no longer waiting. It's listening, and so am I. Morning arrives clear for the first time in weeks. Rain has washed the air, but nothing can clean the silence between the three of us. At breakfast, she sits with her usual elegance, arranging fruit as if precision could erase suspicion. My son hardly eats. He keeps glancing at her, then at me, as though waiting for someone to declare which world is real. I stay quiet. The less I speak, the more the truth grows inside her mind. By midday, I leave the house for the city. The investigator meets me in an underground car park, an envelope in his hand. Inside are printouts, bank transactions, text messages, a security camera still from the clinic corridor. Proof is never loud. It just waits to be read. I thank him and walk back into the sunlight, my pocket heavier than before. That evening, I invite a few old associates to dinner. Nothing formal, just wine, laughter, business memories. She plays hostess perfectly. Gliding between conversation and charm, my son relaxes for the first time in days, mistaking performance for peace. While everyone eats, I place the folded statement from the doctor on the mantel beside the decanter. No one notices at first. Then one guest, a lawyer, reaches for the bottle, sees the paper and frowns. He asks, half joking, if I'm drafting contracts at dinner again. She laughs a little, too loudly. I smile and say, just paperwork from an old friend. Her hand tightens around her glass. Later, when the guests leave, she confronts me in the hallway. Her tone is low, controlled, almost respectful. She wants to know what I'm planning. I tell her the truth. Nothing yet. That answer unsettles her more than threats ever could. She walks away, heels clicking like a clock counting down. I let her go. The next morning, I find my son packing a small bag. He says he's going to stay with friends for a few days. Needs space. She stands nearby, expression carefully blank. I nod, say it's a good idea, and watch the car disappear through the gate. When she turns back toward me, her mask slips for a heartbeat. Relief flickers across her face. The kind of relief that comes when a plan seems to be working. That's when I know she's ready to fall. That afternoon, the lawyer friend from dinner calls. He's curious about the document he saw. I tell him a portion of the truth, that it involves medical fraud, that discretion matters. He offers help. I decline not because I don't need it, but because I'm saving the reveal for the right stage. There's a hearing scheduled soon, one concerning family assets. She doesn't yet know that I intend to attend. Evening settles again, and with it the heavy quiet of expectation. I walk the length of the corridor outside their room, listening to faint music and the soft murmur of her voice on the phone. When I catch the words lawyer and settlement, I know the end has already begun. The following morning, the sky looks as pale as the marble floors. She's at the dining table, scrolling her phone, unaware that her reflection in the window shows more truth than her eyes ever will. I sit across from her, silent. Let silence stretch long enough, and people start confessing to fill it. She asks if I've spoken to my son. I tell her yes, that he's safe, and thinking clearly now. That single sentence makes her blink. Her fingers still on the screen, I pour coffee for both of us, careful, unhurried. The small clink of porcelain sounds almost ceremonial. Then I slide an envelope across the table. Not the real one, just a copy. The doctor's statement, the bank records. She doesn't open it immediately. She studies my face first, as if searching for mercy. There isn't any. When she finally looks down, the color drains from her cheeks. Her breath catches, shallow and quick. The room shrinks until only the ticking clock exists. I let the seconds pile up before I speak. You can lie to him, I say quietly, but not to paper. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again. Excuses tumble out. Confusion, misunderstanding, someone else's fault. Each word sounds smaller than the last. I take the envelope back, fold it neatly, and say, "You'll have your chance to explain. In daylight." Then I leave her sitting there, surrounded by a silence that no longer protects her. Outside, the garden glows faintly after rain. The roses bend under droplets that glitter like small verdicts. Truth, like water, always finds a way through cracks. By nightfall, she packs a suitcase. I watch from the study window as she drags it to her car. The taillights vanish down the drive, 2 red dots swallowed by fog. I don't stop her. Some lessons require distance before they hurt enough to matter. I pour one last drink, the glass cool against my hand. Half of this war is over. The rest waits for morning. If you're still listening, remember to like, subscribe, and share this story. Tell me where you're watching from. She doesn't come home for 2 days. Those 48 hours feel like the house itself is exhaling for the first time in years. Every room holds a strange calm, the kind that arrives after a storm has chosen a direction. I spend those days preparing. The evidence sits neatly in a file. Statements, bank transfers, photographs. I keep the file on my desk, in plain sight. Let truth be the first thing anyone sees when they walk through that door. On the third evening, headlights sweep across the driveway. She's back. The gate closes behind her with the sound of metal deciding something permanent. She steps inside quietly, as if hoping the walls have forgotten. I greet her with the same courtesy I'd show any guest. She seems relieved by my calm. She always mistakes quiet for surrender. I ask if she'd like tea. She hesitates, then nods. We sit opposite each other in the living room. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. When I finally do, the words are soft, measured. You've been busy. Her eyes flicker. Fear, pride, calculation. She starts talking, explaining away the money, the clinic visits, the report. Every excuse overlaps the next until she's building a wall made of noise. I let her finish. Then I slide the file across the table. Each document bears her name in ink that no longer bleeds. I told you, I say. Every story meets the truth that built it. She stares at the papers, then at me. Something in her expression changes, a shift from defense to realization. This is the moment she understands the game is over. You wouldn't ruin your own family, she whispers. I'm not ruining it, I answer. I'm saving what's left. Her shoulders drop. A mixture of defeat and disbelief. For the first time, she looks small in this house. The rooms around her seem to grow taller, as if siding with me. She asks what I want. An apology, I tell her, and your signature. On the table lies another document, an agreement that returns the properties and accounts she manipulated. No courts, no noise, just closure. She signs. The pen trembles once, then stills when it's done. I fold the paper, place it back into the file, and stand. Her voice follows me, thin and bitter. You think this makes you a good man? I pause at the doorway. No, I say. It just makes me the last honest one. She stays seated after I leave the room. For a long time, the only sound is the faint tick of the hall clock. I pour water in the kitchen. Listen to the rhythm. Let each second steady me. When I return, she's still there, staring at nothing. Her voice has lost its polish. What happens now? Now, I tell her, you learn how silence feels when it isn't protecting you. I collect the file, slip it into the safe. The click of metal closing sounds like a verdict. She starts to cry, not loud, not messy, just enough to test whether I'll soften. I don't. Pity is the first crack in justice, and I've sealed enough cracks in my life to recognize them. I tell her my son will be back tomorrow. She flinches at his name, knowing the truth is already waiting for her in his eyes. Before she leaves the room, she turns once more. I never meant to hurt him, she says. I look at her for a moment, measuring the distance between words and meaning. You meant to help yourself, I answer. Everything after that was collateral. She walks upstairs. Each step echoes until the door closes. The house exhales again. I sit alone for a while. Tracing the rim of the glass with my thumb, the taste of old wine lingers. Sharp, metallic. Outside, wind moves through the garden. The roses shiver under it. They'll survive. They always do. When my son returns the next day, I meet him at the gate. He looks uncertain, carrying the quiet of someone bracing for the worst. I tell him the worst has already passed. He doesn't believe me until he steps inside and sees the empty spaces. Her coat's gone, her perfume already fading from the air. We sit in the study. I slide the signed documents toward him. Explain what they mean. He reads them slowly, his hand steadying with every line. Finally he looks up. You did this? Yep. Why? Because truth belongs to the living, I say. And you're still here. He doesn't speak again. Instead he stands, crosses the room, and for the first time in years, embraces me. It's brief, awkward, heavy with everything we never said, but it's real. When he leaves the room, I look at the chair she used to occupy. The sunlight cuts across it, bright and clean, as if the house itself is ready to begin again. Justice rarely looks dramatic. Sometimes it's just the sound of a door closing and the calm that follows. And in that calm, I find something I'd almost forgotten: peace sharpened by truth. The next week unfolds with the strange stillness that follows confession. People around us act as though nothing happened, but the air inside the house has changed its shape. My son walks a little straighter now. The weight that bent him seems to have lifted. He doesn't talk about her. And I don't ask. Some silences are merciful. Letters begin arriving, formal, apologetic notes from the doctor, brief messages from mutual friends who suddenly had no idea. I file each one away. I don't need apologies. I need memory. Memory is what keeps truth from decaying. On Thursday morning, the lawyer calls. He tells me the settlement papers have cleared, that all accounts and holdings have been returned. He sounds impressed, almost grateful to witness something done cleanly for once. I thank him, then spend the rest of the day in the garden trimming the dead branches. It feels appropriate. By evening, the quiet turns heavier. Justice, once achieved, always leaves an echo. I think of her somewhere in another city, perhaps telling a new version of the story, one where she's the victim, one that keeps her company. Let her. Lies are exhausting. Sooner or later, they eat the mouths that feed them. My son joins me on the patio. We talk about business, about a project he wants to start, something honest, small, his own. He asks if I believe people can change. I tell him yes, but rarely in the direction they intend. He laughs softly, the first genuine laugh I've heard from him in months. That sound alone is worth everything. Still, I know the world is watching. Rumors move faster than letters. Eventually, someone will ask questions, and the truth will have to walk in daylight. I decide that when that moment comes, it will be on my terms. 2 days later, it arrives. A journalist friend, someone I once helped during my corporate years, calls to ask about the Bennett situation. He's heard whispers of forged reports and a family scandal. I tell him to come by for tea. If the story will be told, let it be told accurately. When he arrives, I hand him copies of the doctor's confession and the withdrawal statement from the bank. I ask for one thing only, that the article focus on integrity, not humiliation. He nods, promises to keep it tasteful. I believe him. That night the article goes live online. It's simple, factual. Retired businessman exposes medical fraud used to manipulate family inheritance. No names beyond what's public, no cruelty, no gossip. Still, it spreads. People love a story where deceit collapses under its own weight. By morning, the phones start ringing. Old colleagues, distant relatives, even people who never called before suddenly want to check in. They talk around the subject, pretending curiosity is concern. I give them all the same answer. The matter is settled, and everyone involved is healthy. That last word, healthy, seems to end every conversation. My son reads the article at the breakfast table. He says nothing for a long time. Then, quietly, he thanks me not for saving him, but for letting the truth breathe instead of hiding it. That difference means more than any apology could. Later, I drive into the city to close the last piece of business. The doctor meets me in his office. Eyes heavy, hands folded. He's repaid the bribe, every cent. He talks about resigning, about starting over somewhere smaller. I tell him he doesn't owe me anything except honesty from now on. When I leave, he looks lighter, as if shame has finally had its say and gone quiet. Back home, the afternoon light spills through the tall windows, warm and colorless. The house smells of coffee and wood polish again, the scent it used to have before deceit moved in. My son is in the garden, cutting away the last of the ruined branches. I watch him work, steady, focused. Every movement writes a new chapter where the old one used to fester. For a moment, I almost feel the urge to forgive her. Almost. Then I remember the look in his eyes when he believed he was broken, and the thought fades. Forgiveness is a luxury best left to those untouched by consequences. Night settles early. I pour a single glass of wine, take it to the patio, and listen to the crickets stitching the dark together. This is what justice sounds like. Not thunder, not applause, just balance returning to the air. I raise the glass once, to silence, to truth, to everything that still stands. If you've been following this far, remember to like, subscribe, and share this story. Weeks pass, and the noise around the story fades the way storms fade at sea, slowly, leaving only smaller waves behind. The article has settled into the archives, a few conversations replayed, then forgotten. The world moves on. I stay where I am, listening to what still echoes inside these walls. The house is alive again. There's music sometimes. My son plays an old record while he works, humming off-key but content. The air feels different now, lighter, clean, ordinary in the best way possible. He's started the small business he once mentioned. I watch him leave every morning, confident, jacket over one shoulder, the kind of smile that comes from surviving something and learning from it. He doesn't talk about her anymore. He doesn't need to. Some wounds close. Better without narration. One afternoon, I walk through the rooms she used to decorate, sharp colors, expensive distractions. I've had them painted white again, neutral, honest. It's remarkable how peace prefers simple shades. I keep the file locked away, though I rarely look at it. Not because I'm afraid of what's in it, but because I don't want to forget what it cost to make things right. Every page is a reminder that truth, once earned, needs guarding. Sometimes I think about the doctor. He sent a letter last week, handwritten, careful, thanking me for not destroying him completely. He said the scholarship for his daughter continues. He's taken a position in a small rural clinic. I read his words twice, then folded the letter and placed it in the drawer beside the watch I no longer wear. Some debts settle themselves quietly. In the evenings, I sit by the window with a notebook open, not to plan, not to plot, just to write whatever silence says. It speaks in short sentences now, clean and clear. People imagine revenge as fire. They never think about what happens after the fire burns out. It isn't emptiness. It's calm, and calm, when you've earned it, feels almost holy. A few friends still visit on weekends. They talk about retirement, politics, old times. They ask if I miss the company, the noise of boardrooms. I tell them I traded all that for peace and got the better end of the deal. They laugh, not understanding. That's fine. Not everything can be explained to people still busy chasing applause. On the first truly warm day of spring, I walk the length of the garden. The roses have returned, fuller than before. Their stems carry a few thorns that catch the light like small warnings, proof that beauty never exists without defense. I stop by the bench near the old oak, the place where my son once sat as a boy counting birds. He joins me there again now, taller, quieter. A man who understands more than he says. We talk about nothing important. The weather, the new business, the neighbor's dog that refuses to stay behind its fence. Simple talk, the kind that keeps a house human. After a while, he says he's thinking about visiting his mother's grave. He wants to tell her that things are better. I nod. Some truths belong to the dead before they can rest with the living. When he leaves, I stay on the bench. The late light turns everything gold. For the first time in years, the estate feels exactly as it should. Not a fortress, not a monument, just home. I close my eyes and listen. Wind through leaves, a single bell from the distant chapel. Footsteps fading along the gravel path. This is what remains after justice is done. Not triumph, not pride, only balance. Inside, the study smells of paper and dust. I open the safe once more, take out the file, and add one final page, a short note written in my own hand. Legacy preserved. Lesson learned. Then I lock it away for good. Before bed, I pour a final drink and stand by the window. Night stretches across the grounds, like a clean sheet over a made bed. Every shadow looks honest again. I raise the glass once more, not to victory, not even to truth, but to endurance, because that's all that ever survives the storms people build for themselves. I drink slowly, tasting the quiet. It tastes like closure. If you stayed through to the end, thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe if stories of truth and justice speak to you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there right now? Your stories keep mine alive.